Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to the fifth tutorial on this series now. And today we're going to be seeing the switch statement. And what the switch statement is, it's just a different version of the if statement. It allows of switching between different options, just like a physical switch would, only that it has an indefinite number of possible states. A normal switch usually has an on and off state, and the Java switch can have many different states. So this is how you do it. First of all, you are going to ask the user for an integer. So int, for example, switch number equals read line, enter a number. And now it will tell us an error, because if you remember, read line returns a string, and this is an integer, so you cannot assign a string of text to an integer. You can only assign whole numbers. So what we must do is change this string the user writes into an integer. First of all, we will be assuming that the user writes whole numbers. He doesn't write letters or decimal points, because that would create an error in our program, and it would stop. And then we can convert this string into an integer, and we do it in a simple way. Well, first of all, write integer and then parse int, and we do this. So basically, let me show you what it does. We're reading the line, and we ask the user for a number. In fact, let's forget this and use read int. This is going to be easier for you. So basically, instead of changing the string to an integer, we're going to directly be reading an integer. The code you saw previously is used to convert a string to an integer, and what it does is parse the string into integer form. But for that, the string has to be a number and not letters or decimal points. This method here is used, it basically does the same thing. It reads a line and converts a line to an integer. Fortunately for us, this readint, I think, does do proper error checking. So if we write a letter instead of a number, we won't stop our program. I'm not really sure, however. So basically, we're asking the user for a number, and we assign it to this switch number variable. And then to create a switch, we simply do switch, and then we have to say which number we're switching on. And then a curly brace, and now different possible states of our switch. Imagine the user wrote the number 0. So if the user wrote 0, we're going to execute case 0. And this is the syntax: case, and then the number, and then a colon, and here we write what we do if value was 0. So here we print 0, and then we break. I get to what this means in a second. So we could do this for every number, although that would be pretty boring, so we will say default. Not nan. Unknown. Better. That's it. And we break, and we break. Okay, so if the user wrote 0, we print 0. If he wrote 1, we print 1, 2, and 2. And if he writes something that's not 0, 1, or 2, we just print unknown. So what does this break do? Basically, the break exits out of the innermost block. So this is a block between the curly braces. This is another block between these curly braces of the run method, and this is the last block between the class curly brace and the closing brace. And the break closes from the innermost one. So basically, these breaks are going to break out from this block here. So basically exiting our switch statement. And that's exactly what we want to do. And this can also be used inside loops, which we'll see soon enough, to break out of the loop if a certain condition is met. For the moment, let's leave it at the switch statement, and this way you can switch between different options. Of course, you must tell the user what these options are if you want him to do something reasonable. For example, enter 0 to exit, 1 to display user info, 2 to change the user info, and so on. And then using a switch, you would write case 0 and exit. Case 1, print user info. You would have to create a method to print user info. Or you could just say println username and his username, println password and his password, and so on. So the switch statement is something pretty useful. The only unfortunate thing is I strongly believe that you can only switch using integers, so you can't switch using characters or strings. I might be wrong though. I'll let you know in the next tutorial and see if the switch statement also accepts strings as parameters. I don't think so. Last time I checked, it didn't accept them, so don't expect much. So that's a disadvantage towards a switch statement. It only accepts integers, at least for the time being, and that's pretty much it. It's like an if statement, only that it's condensed, and that you have to write lots of useless code, such as breaks all over the place. In the if statements, you don't have to write breaks. So it's really up to you whether you use if statements or switches. Some people prefer one or another. I personally prefer if statements, but you may prefer otherwise. And just remember to read int instead of read line when you are assigning it to an integer. You can also read double to assign it to a double and that sort of stuff. So let's run this baby and see what happens. Here's our program, and we've got 0 and we'll print out 0. So there we go, we input 0 and printed out 0 back. If we print out 5, we print out unknown. So how could we improve this program here? We print out unknown, but is it really unknown, the number the user wrote? And the answer, of course, is no. We assigned the value the user wrote into switch number, so instead of println unknown, we can print switch number. And let's run this again and see what happens. Here's our program, and we can input this, and our program will print whatever we actually typed into it. So this is all very interesting, but this is a lot of useless code. Instead of this, we could just println switch number, and that would be easier and does the same thing. Of course, that was not the purpose of the lesson. And I'll let you see what happens. I wrote an extremely large number here, and it told me illegal numeric format, and then it asked me for a number again. But why did it say illegal numeric format? Integers, so int variables, can only hold a value up to about 3 billion, and that's obviously over 3 billion. So that's why it said illegal numeric format. If you want to use such large values, okay, I'll just write 4 there. We have to use double, so I'll just change this to double, and instead of read int, I'll change it to read double. Enter number, there we go. So let's run this again. This is my number, and here's an E. So basically what the double does is write this in scientific notation. Something to take into account, especially if you are creating a program and you don't want to show the double variables in scientific notation. You have to do something about it. I'm not going to show you how to actually change the number of decimal points and how it's displayed just yet. So I do think YouTube has increased the max size of the video to 15 minutes. But anyways, I'll stop here and just tell you what we've learned. Today we've learned how to create a switch, and it's very similar to a physical switch. It has an undefined number of states. It can have as many states as you want, and it can switch based on integer variables. Remember to break after each case. So basically you write case and the number which you are comparing. So if the user wrote 0, you will run case 0, and then you write what you want to do if the user wrote 0, and then you break, and you must do this after every case. So that was the switch. A pretty nifty tool, nifty code to use. Not some people would say not too useful, but I like it, and I also like the if statement, so it's really up to you which one to use. So throughout the tutorials, since I like the if statement better, we'll be using the if statement. So that's just some info. So basically, just remember to subscribe if you like the content, and keep watching the tutorials and keep programming and enjoying yourselves. I'll see you soon on the next one.